Hello, everybody. I actually prepared something, so I don't know if that's, it's not spontaneous, so it's recycled. So we have one atmosphere, only one. And I presume all of us here want to protect it, and even the wider audience. However, we have strong differences about what we think constitutes a threat to our atmosphere. And we're all concerned about the buildup of greenhouse gases, and we know in this audience that reduces the loss of heat in an unnatural way, and so our environment is warming up. We have a wonderful environment, and when we inhale oxygen, we exhale carbon dioxide. These trees around us inhale carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen and form carbohydrates in their tissue. Those edible plants we eat gain the carbon, which becomes part of the carbon dioxide that we exhale with new oxygen. Perfect. It's beautiful. And carbon dioxide is not pollution. It's not pollution. It's a part of the carbon cycle that's essential for life. What is pollution is the imbalance, because if we emit carbon dioxide specifically, also methane, other things, nitrous oxides, in a quantity in excess of what the plants around us can reabsorb, then the part that is not reabsorbed is accumulative. And this is a really big issue. It's the cumulative nature. And this occurred to me only 5 years ago after advocating for a sustainable economy for decades. Because I thought once we stopped doing that which was problematic, that the problem would go away. But no, that's not the case, because the carbon dioxide that we put up there that's causing this greenhouse gas heat retention is still there. So after a lonely moment of recognizing this, I thought, well, it's measurable. The fact that it's measurable means that we can address this issue if we choose to. But we have to recognize it first. And the core recognition we need to have is that we need to limit our greenhouse gas emissions generally, and carbon dioxide specifically, to less than the amount that can be removed. Now, we are in a time where we're coming close to this being recognized. And in our national politics, our presidential candidates running for the primaries are starting to show the numbers offered by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the UN group that studies climate for us, for the world. In any case, this organization in 2018 report issued that we need to limit, sets a goal of net zero emissions. That means our emissions equal the amount that can be removed. That would be net zero by 2050. And to get to that goal, we need to limit emissions to 50% of what they were in 2010 by 2030. Now, that's a lot of qualifiers, and so it's kind of complicated. But the simple version is we need to reduce emissions to less than what can be removed. And that cannot happen until we have that recognition collectively. We can't do this as a divided people. So if we stay divided, that defers to continued acceleration of emissions. Not only are we not going down, we're going up at a higher rate than ever. I'm alarmed. Are you alarmed? I'm alarmed. So, but I am also encouraged because I'm starting to hear some of the national candidates talk about the measure of what solves the problem, and they're using the IPCC numbers to frame the policies that they're proposing. There have to be ambitious policies. They can only be ambitious policies because there's no point in aspiring to less than what it takes to get the job done. So we potentially are on the cusp of a movement that can bring about this transition, and we all have to contribute. We all have to contribute. It's not something that others can do for us. If we remain on our same energy level, same emissions level, that also is a choice. That's a choice not to do it. So I took numbers from the IPCC, from an 07 report, and did the math. And nature gives us net sequestration. In other words, the emissions from nature are less than the amount that is removed by photosynthesis. And that most of our human-caused emissions are in the carbon cycle. Most of our human-caused emissions are returned to the earth through the plants, but the part that's not is accumulative. So the fact that most of it means that if we manage it, if we measure, we can design an economy that lives within a budget. And because the concentration of carbon dioxide is already too high and we're normalizing Category 5 hurricanes, we have to pull carbon dioxide out. And the only thing that does that is to have net sequestration, net removal of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Totally possible, but only if we recognize that. So I'm looking for that cultural moment when we recognize that succinctly, this is absolutely a firm budget. And I compare it with the buildup before, or the mobilization that's needed to achieve that goal is comparable to the mobilization for World War II. Now, that historical precedent gives us an experience of where a nation was divided and suddenly came to a common recognition of a threat that we all shared. Now, I say we, I wasn't born at that point, but my father was a soldier in the reserves in 1938, and he was aware of the conflict and was preparing for the fight. My mother was a nurse in Chicago and just becoming a young adult, and she knew about it. She heard it through the media at the time, but didn't think it involved her. But after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, they saw a common threat. And my mother got in with the program, as did most Americans, and then we had unity. We had unity of purpose. And we also had a criteria for what solved the problem, even if we didn't know all the steps it would take to do it, or if we'd be successful. And that's what's similar to here. We're still in a divided country, but we're moving towards that point where there's this wider recognition. And in that moment is our time to shine. We can become great. And greatness occurs under duress. So generally, if we're comfortable and we're laid back and all that, we're not going to be great. But if we're challenged and we understand what the criteria is and we work together in our own way to, one, reduce our own personal emissions and support government people, say politicians, who want that, then the government can set policies that support that outcome. And I did the math for net sequestration by nature divided by the world's population. I came up with 2.6 tons. 2.6 tons per person. If we all average 2.6 tons per person, we'd be at net zero today. Now, our average is 19 tons in the United States, so we're way over. We're adding a lot of carbon to the atmosphere, all of us, or on average. However, the people of Costa Rica average 1.9 tons of emissions, and they score high on the happiness index. So, therefore, there must be some degree of economic sufficiency in Costa Rica that allows them to be happy at 1.9 tons. So you could say that Costa Rica is removing 0.6 tons of carbon dioxide every year per person. Now, if the world had the average of Costa Rica, we would be removing more than 2 parts per million. We would be paying our debt. So how that can occur is a creative process that has to involve almost all of us. If you're not involved, then you're choosing to continue the acceleration of emissions. We all have to be involved. Can we imagine that possibility? I like to imagine it because that's the thing that can keep me up, keep me going. It's long odds, not a guarantee, but if I believe it's possible, I have more energy to make it work. And so I hope that we can rise to the occasion and be responsible to the future, and imagine living inside the carbon cycle. It'll be great. Thank you.